All right, let's get right into it. Rocket Mortgage. You know the name, they're the biggest lender in America. But right now, they're facing a huge new class action lawsuit that's raising some pretty serious questions about how they operate. So we're going to break down what's happening, what exactly they're being accused of, and why this really matters to anyone out there with a mortgage or even just thinking about getting one.
And we're not talking about a small issue here. This new lawsuit suggests that hundreds of thousands of homebuyers could be affected. When you see a number that big, it immediately makes you wonder.
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the core accusation here. To really get a handle on what's going on, we're going to start with this latest legal challenge, and then kind of zoom out to see the much bigger picture.
Okay, first up, the breaking news. Let's look at the lawsuit that's put Rocket right back into the legal spotlight.
So yeah, this is fresh. It's a brand new nationwide case, and the lawsuit claims this isn't some new problem. It alleges these practices have been going on for years.
So here's the heart of it. The lawsuit alleges this illegal pay-to-play scheme. Basically, it claims real estate agents were pushed or compelled to steer their clients toward Rocket for a mortgage. And what did the agents get in return? Super valuable sales leads. The supposed result? Home buyers, people like you and me, ended up with higher interest rates and fees.
Now, of course, there are always two sides to the story. The plaintiffs are saying this was a systemic scheme that hurt consumers by boxing them in. But Rocket, they're saying, hang on, this is just a complete retread, old news from a case that was already thrown out, and we're definitely going to get to that previous case in just a minute.
To really understand what's at stake, we need to talk about this term, illegal steering. It sounds a little complex, but it all boils down to one really important federal law.
It's called RESPA, and its whole purpose is to protect home buyers, to keep the process fair. The law basically says you can't give or receive anything of value, whether it's cash or, say, valuable sales leads, just for a business referral on a mortgage. It's there to make sure your agent is recommending someone because they're the best for you, not because the agent is getting a secret kickback.
So this is how the lawsuit claims the whole thing worked. Step 1, Rocket gives these great sales leads to real estate agents. Step 2, in return, those agents are required to steer their clients, the homebuyers, back to Rocket. Step 3, the consumer, who's in the middle of all this, might be completely blocked from finding a better, cheaper loan somewhere else. And Step 4, the agents who play ball get rewarded with even more leads, which just keeps this closed loop going and going. Now, remember how Rocket said this was all just a retread of an old case? Well, that's because this isn't the first time they've been under the microscope for something like this. To get the full context, we need to zoom out and look at what seems to be a pattern. The short answer? Not even close. In fact, this new lawsuit seems to be built on the foundations of a case brought by a major federal agency a few years back.
Right. So the CFPB, that's the government's top consumer watchdog for financial stuff, they actually sued Rocket for pretty much the same thing in 2024. Now, that case was dismissed, but here's the kicker. The lawyers in the new case argue it wasn't dropped because Rocket was innocent. They say it was dropped because of a change in the presidential administration.
And when you lay it all out on the timeline like this, you really start to see a pattern emerge. Look at this. October 2024, the Department of Justice hits them with an appraisal bias suit. Just 2 months later, boom, the CFPB files that steering lawsuit. Then that case gets dismissed in early 2025, but then another judgment comes down for appraisal influence, though to be fair, that was later vacated, and all of that leads us right up to today's new class action suit. It really paints a picture of a company facing one legal battle after another.
And it's not just about steering. The company has also been sued over and over for things like alleged unwanted robocalls and for supposedly pulling people's credit reports when they shouldn't have. It just shows that Rocket has been facing scrutiny from all sorts of different angles.
Okay, so we've talked about lawsuits, regulations, all this legal jargon, but what's the real bottom line? What does this mean for the average person who's just trying to buy a house?
This is what it all comes down to, really. First, are you paying more than you should be? If you're only shown one option, you could be missing out on a much better deal. Second, it's about your freedom of choice. Are you really seeing all the best options, or just the one that helps out your agent? And finally, and this one is huge, it's about trust. Can you be sure the pros guiding you are truly on your side?
At the end of the day, that's the fundamental question here. When you're making what is likely the biggest purchase of your entire life, you have to be able to trust the process. And these lawsuits, well, they put a crack in that foundation of trust.
So, where does this all leave us? You've got these really serious allegations on one side, and you've got some very firm denials on the other.
And let's be crystal clear, Rockets has been absolutely firm in their position. The company flat out denies any wrongdoing. They're confident that just like in some of the past cases, the courts are going to rule in their favor and they'll be vindicated.
And that's the tough spot every potential home buyer has to navigate. On one hand, you have America's biggest lender saying, "We do everything by the book." But on the other hand, you have this long documented history of lawsuits from both private firms and government watchdogs that suggest otherwise.
So that's the question we're left with, isn't it? It just goes to show how incredibly important it is to do your own homework. You got to compare multiple offers, you got to ask the tough questions. In a world this complicated, being an informed consumer isn't just a good idea, it's really your best and only defense.